So Sam, with his Diet Mountain Dew, I'll just say there's a rumor around the office at some point you told someone that if the refrigerator ever ran out of Diet Mountain Dew, they would lose their job.
That is not untrue.
Hi, I'm Todd Farmer.
And I'm Sam Wright, and this is What Should You Ask?
Today we're talking about starting a new diet, right? Or starting a new healthy diet.
I love diets. I start one all the time.
Well, my first question for you is, in general, do you think you eat a healthy diet?
You know, I go through periods that I eat really well, and then I go through periods where I eat really bad.
Yeah.
You know, I did the Atkins diet many years ago, and that is really hard. You don't think it would be, but about the fifth day, you're going, bacon and eggs again.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I couldn't do that long term, it's the lack of variety that I struggled with.
Yeah.
I will eat salads and vegetables, but I don't love them.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I'll eat them, but I don't wake up and go, man, I'd love a good salad today, you know?
My wife is pretty good about making sure that we have vegetables at our house. And so I'm okay with that. I don't eat very much fruit. I get most of that through candy, right? So that's my substitute for fruit.
Bananas, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. I eat that every day.
That does nothing for me. Nothing. Fortunately, my kids eat it.
It's really good with a scoop of ice cream.
My wife is a vegetarian. And one of the things we've asked is how that impacts eating at home. We normally will make meals where you can have vegetarian options with it. So like tacos, and instead of, ground beef or chicken or something, she puts black beans in it.
She never liked meat. Is that what it is?
She just doesn't like the texture. She doesn't like the texture. Now, when she was pregnant with Henry and we were somewhere, there was no other food, she ate a chicken nugget or something, but she just doesn't eat it. When we're traveling, and we go somewhere, we're in the middle of nowhere and there's only like a McDonald's, for example, we order, get this, a Big Mac, no meat. And they look at her like she's got two heads. Yeah. That's essentially special sauce and a bunch of bread. Todd, what's your food weakness? Like, is there something you could just sit down and devour the whole thing?
I love desserts.
Yeah. I'm like a junk food junkie. I could just sit and eat junk food. I could eat chips. I could eat candy.
I was unsupervised and was kind of a latchkey kid when I was a kid. And I think that's when I started going downhill, because when you're home and you're 12 by yourself, you're not really worried about
You can watch cartoons and eat Doritos, right?
Yeah. You can eat a half a box of cereal as you're watching Gilligan's Island.
Is there any food that you cannot stand? I know something he can't stand. We'll see if he...
Foods that I cannot
or things you don't like.
What do you know that I don't like?
Mayonnaise.
Oh, I
don't. Doesn't want anything to do with mayonnaise.
I don't eat mayonnaise or sour
cream.
He
could never be a Canadian with a hamburger, ever.
No, I don't eat mayonnaise or sour cream. It just looks like something that's rotted.
Yeah, and
I don't know what it is. I never have been able to tolerate mayonnaise.
That is one big difference. Like if somebody asked me in like a counseling session, the biggest difference between Todd and I, like where we split, it's mayonnaise. Everything else, we're pretty much in line. Today on What Should You Ask, we have dietitian Karly Stom from Kentucky Care. She's going to be answering questions regarding starting a new diet, good carbs, bad carbs, what diet trends you should and shouldn't follow. We're going to cover all of these topics and even more, so make sure you stick around for What Should You Ask.
Life doesn't stop just because you're injured. In fact, life keeps going on around you and gets tougher. If you find yourself incapacitated or otherwise unable to go about normal life because of an accident, it's time to talk to attorneys Farmer and Wright. Don't delay. The sooner you file your personal injury lawsuit, the better. Farmer and Wright have helped people just like you get compensation for their medical bills, lost wages, property damage, and other costs. Fight for what's yours. Talk to Farmer and Wright today. Go online to farmerwright, that's right with a W, .com.
Welcome back. I'm Todd Farmer.
And I'm Sam Wright. Thanks for joining us on What Should You Ask?
We have Kentucky Care dietitian Karly Stom with us today, and we're going to talk about diets, diet plans, nutrition,
My stress eating. Can we talk about that too?
Come up at some point.
All right. So the first big question I have, Karly, what is the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian?
Okay, that's kind of a loaded question because dietitians all over the world are really passionate about this. State by state, it actually varies on what credentialing you have to be a nutritionist. In Kentucky, you do not have to have any past experience, past education
or
necessarily, to call yourself a nutritionist.
Okay.
Not to say there's not great nutritionists out there.
Right.
But to be a dietitian, you have to have a bachelor's degree in some human nutrition related field.
Okay.
And then starting in 2024, you also have to have your master's degree in nutrition.
Do you have your master's?
I do. I went ahead and finished it.
Oh, good for you.
Yes. So that, and then we do about a year of supervised practice after we graduate with our bachelor's degree.
Okay. Where'd you get your master's?
Murray State.
Okay. I'm a fellow racer.
When you look at online, it's like every time you turn on the news or TV, there is some new miracle diet plan that's just going to save us all. So,
and hold on, have you used any of those? Have you done any of those miracle diet plans?
Many years ago, I tried the Atkins diet.
Yeah.
Which is basically eating a bunch of meat.
Isn't that terrible? Isn't that terrible in cholesterol numbers?
Yes. Depends on what meat you're eating. I mean, if you're eating
everybody
a ton
wants
of beef,
bacon. Everybody wants bacon on the Atkins.
If you're loading up on bacon every day, I'm going to go ahead and say your cholesterol is probably going to suffer.
And so I tried that. Have you tried?
So I have not done any of the fad diets. I have used a meal plan before. That a personal trainer who is not educated like you are, but that a personal trainer set up. And it included Halo Top ice cream, a pint of Halo Top ice cream per day. Per day.
Good diet plan.
And I lost weight. So first of all, let's talk about can you hire dietitians? How does that work?
So there are dietitians that are in private practice.
Okay.
So work for themselves and schedule outpatients. They're not super prominent around here.
Okay.
But as far as outpatient counseling, you can usually find them at sometimes a primary care physician's office. In the hospital setting, most of the time they're only seeing inpatients primarily. So you would have to seek out online probably where you're going to find a dietitian near you.
Let me ask you a question. So if we're going off script a little bit, but when somebody, Todd's looking at me like, what are you going to ask? When somebody is in the hospital, like let's say they have to have a heart healthy diet, is it really going to make that big of a difference if the 2 days that they're in the hospital, they have no salt? Does it really make that big of a deal?
Right. My thoughts are, let's teach them how to eat while they're here, show them what it looks like, and then if they go home and do it, we've talked about it, we've modeled it, and so they see what it looks like. But I think with sodium or salt, it actually can matter because if you're in heart failure and you're packing on sodium, you're packing on fluid, you might stay there longer.
Okay.
So, but in theory, I really don't enjoy educating in the hospital setting because people are so sick. That's not what they want.
They're just not in the right space anyway to hear that.
No. Yeah. I mean, they want to get well and they want to go home. And I would want to too.
Yeah.
So,
changing a diet, it's not all about losing weight. What are some of the other reasons that people really should think about changing their diet besides weight loss?
Right. A big one, I think, would be family history. If you know that your family has a long-standing history of diabetes or heart disease, a lot of this stuff is getting out in front of it. So if you can go ahead and make modifications to your diet now, then maybe you can prevent some of this chronic disease from reaching your generation too. Or if you already have diabetes or heart disease, obviously that's a reason you would want to change your diet.
My wife reminds me, because we have heart issues on my father's side of the family. He'll be glad that I'm spilling the beans right on a podcast. But my wife always says that I think it's genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger, is what I've heard. Yeah. Isn't that great?
I like that.
Yeah, you can use that. I will not charge you for it.
Okay,
yes. Okay, so we talked about why somebody else would need to be on a diet. The food pyramid, right? So the last time I heard about food pyramid, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. I was in elementary school, and we learned about the food pyramid. Is it still relevant? And tell us about it.
I don't believe it's relevant anymore because it really disproportions how much of your diet should be made up of these certain food groups.
What was at the bottom?
Cereals, breads, kind of thing. You know, all the things that we're telling people to lay low on. Yeah. So now we've got the food plate, and that more so, it doesn't have specific foods in it. It just, so I think it's more, you know, you've got your protein, you've got your grains, fruits, vegetables. That's also can cross cultures too, you know, to meet people that aren't going to be eating a cheeseburger and French fries, you know.
Right. So when we're talking about eating right, what should be the number one focus? Is it how many calories that I eat? Is it how much fat, how much sugar? Rank those for me. Let's do it that. What's number one? What's your number one thing to be worried about?
Number one thing to be worried about is, I would say, balance. Because if I don't believe in loading up on any one thing or any one group, because you need them all. That's why they're all out there. So I would say overall, if you're shooting for weight loss, calories are where your focus needs to be. I never put emphasis on specifically fat or specifically protein. A lot of times I do carbs because I work with diabetes, but I would say overall, just balance.
Should we inspect food labels, like when we're buying food at the grocery store? I mean, should we take a look at that and see what's going on with food labels?
I mean, I feel like you should, because you're putting it in your body, and think you should, you know, care what you're eating.
What's the taboo? What should we not?
Big no-nos.
When we see this, not be eating.
I would steer clear of foods that have more than 10% of saturated fat.
When you're in the grocery, do you sit and look at labels?
Not always. I don't. But I also have looked at labels for so long that I know a lot of what I'm going to eat.
She knows what's in it.
But
she knows what's in it, I'm sure.
I do look at labels for serving sizes. That's the big thing, is serving size, because we do not follow that.
What do you mean by that? Like our sizes are much bigger?
Yes.
Is it true that like this, and here we go, the impossible meat people are going to be mad at me too. Isn't that really high in saturated fat? Have you looked at any of that stuff?
Meat?
You know, like the fake meat?
I don't know what that is.
Well, my wife's a vegetarian, so I know a lot about it. But it's the fake ground beef stuff.
Yeah, and I think they're all made out of different things. So it's hard to say across the board. If it's the ones that are made out of beans, then they're pretty good. That's a good choice. Now, some of these that are popping up at every restaurant you go to, I don't think they're all made out of beans.
Gotcha.
So if someone's having a bunch of health issues, what's the easiest place to start?
I always start people with what they drink.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. When you say what they drink, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then I'm going to fire off some questions.
We get so much, just in America in general, so much of our calories from what we drink. And what we drink doesn't make us feel full. So sodas, sugar-sweetened beverages, sweet tea, juices.
What about Diet Mountain Dew?
Diet Mountain Dew. So if I could get everybody to just drink water, that would be
Do you just drink water?
World. I drink flavored water most of the time. Now, I will drink a Diet Mountain Dew probably once every 2 weeks. Just, you know, sometimes you need something.
So you say no, just drink water?
That would be my preference. Now, if we have so many people, you know, calories are not going to come from your diet sodas. They're
no, but it makes you want to eat sweets.
See, if you know that it makes you want to eat sweets, then you don't need to drink Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that way for everybody.
So we're supposed to add more greens, right, into our diet. But what if you don't want to eat salad? How can you get more greens in your diet if you don't want to eat salad?
If you don't want to eat salad, you can eat. It depends on if you're no raw vegetables at all. Then I say throw it on a sheet pan and bake you broccoli, bake you Brussels sprouts, that kind of thing. But one of the easiest ways, I think, is snacking on it with some low-fat ranch when it comes to broccoli or greens.
What about like those green superfood drinks? Mm-hmm. What about those?
Look at the nutrition label.
Okay.
That's where that comes in handy, is because there's a lot of
What's going to be the kicker on that one? Sugar?
Sugar, yeah. Because a lot of times they're adding a lot of sugar to make these things taste good.
Here's a funny story about us trying to... So when he's now 11, when he was much younger, right, when he just got off, I guess, bottles and whatever, and was able to drink, we would get these organic, all natural fruit little jars. And it was like fruit juice. And it was all organic, nothing else added. And we thought, this is fantastic. They were not cheap. They were expensive. And so we thought, this is going to be great. So he's drinking those all the time. The first time he went to the dentist, which is a good friend of mine, the kid opened his mouth. And he said to my wife, "What have you been giving him?" So apparently those were filled with sugar.
But they were organic and natural.
Yes, and they had a really cool label, right? You
Right.
could get into your
You're such a
Volvo.
yuppie. You're such a little yuppie.
You could take your Volvo to the organic food section and listen to NPR the whole way.
You'll be the only one there.
Yes.
We're going to take a short break, and Karly will answer some questions regarding diet trends such as intermittent fasting, keto, and the like when we come back. This is What Should You Ask?
You might think that filing for bankruptcy is something that only big corporations do, but sometimes individuals have to declare bankruptcy too. You might find yourself in a situation beyond your control. Maybe you've lost your job, were involved in an accident, or just went through a divorce. Attorneys Farmer and Wright can help you through these tough times. If you find yourself having to declare bankruptcy to eliminate debts you can't pay, call Farmer and Wright immediately. They'll meet with you, offer compassion, and fight for you. Go online to Farmer Wright, that's Wright with a W.com.
Welcome back. I'm Todd Farmer.
And I'm Sam Wright. Thanks for joining us on What Should You Ask? Today we have Karly Stom from Kentucky Care. We're talking about nutrition and starting a healthier diet.
When you meet with a new client, what do you typically ask first about their diet?
I always ask just what is your pattern? Not necessarily what are you eating at each meal. I don't start there. Do you eat 3 meals a day? Are you a snacker? Do you eat 3 meals and 7 snacks? Or do you just snack all day long?
What would you prefer? What's the answer you want to hear?
Well, it also depends on what their conditions are that they're coming to me for. But most of the time, I want to hear that you're eating something at least 3 times a day.
What if it's weight loss? 3 times a day?
Generally, yeah.
Okay. More than 3?
I kind of take it case by case on what the person's already doing because I don't like to try to jump from, okay, I'm eating once a day to all of a sudden I've got to eat 6 small meals.
Right.
But and I don't think 6 small meals is actually realistic for a lot of people. So I try to start at where they're at and do the next right thing.
Are there consistent bad habits that you hear about across the board?
Yes. People do not like to eat breakfast. People like to stay up late and snack or skip.
Breakfast. Listen, if it comes down to not eating breakfast, I will be late.
I do intermittent fasting.
Okay.
So I start eating at about noon. I stop eating at 7.
Okay. You do
What
a
are your-
7-hour to...
7 p to 12 noon. So what are your thoughts about that?
So with intermittent fasting, a lot of people do have success on it. Have you had success?
Yeah.
You say? Okay. I've found that, and this is kind of how it is with all fad diets, I think that...
Is that really a fad? That's okay. You can call me out.
Not so much, because really I think it boils down to what you're eating in that
During
7
the break,
hours.
yeah. I normally go wild, yeah.
All 7 hours, you're just crazy.
No. But
What is it about intermittent fasting? Is it just controlling how much people eat in that 20? Is that what it is?
That, and you're cutting out already some maybe problematic times. Like I said, a lot of the bad habits I see are people that stay up late and you're kind of mindlessly eating. So if you're saying you're stopping at 7 p.m., you're cutting that temptation out completely.
right.
Already.
It's because I go to sleep. Otherwise, I'd be eating.
Yeah.
It's not realistic to give up sweets, right?
Right. Not in my life, it's not.
Is that most people's weakness? Is it the sweet desserts? Is it
the snacking on...
or is it, fried food?
I think that most people, just generally speaking, it boils right down to portion size.
Really?
I mean, what we've been taught
Okay.
or what we've seen with our eyes since we were 10, has become what our normal is. So whenever you look at, like I said, the back of the package, if you were to measure out how much it says to eat, it's going to not look like enough compared to what you're used to eating most of the time.
So like you're saying, on occasion, I could eat fried chicken. I just can't have 5 pieces, right? I can have 1 piece and then more vegetables.
Right. And here's my other theory on that is, if you're really craving fried chicken, is there much else that's going to satisfy that craving?
No.
Can you chew a piece of gum and be happy?
And get the same fits? No.
No. So you try to satisfy it with maybe all these other things. Then how many calories have you eaten?
And you still want the chicken.
And then you still want the chicken.
So
and maybe you go to the chicken.
Yeah. So if you put someone on a program and they're really trying to watch what they eat, do you kind of factor in like a cheat day or?
I think that everyone's mind works different as far as how well it actually impacts or how successful you are with dieting with a big cheat day in there. I think it makes it harder. I think if we just do everything in moderation, if you want your fried chicken one day a week, say I'm going to have my fried chicken one day a week, but I'm not going to eat 7 pieces. Or if maybe I want it 2 days that week.
So I was on a meal plan like religious because I'm like Todd, I'm not on it right now, but when he's on it, he is on it, right? So I was on this meal plan and Saturday evenings were designated cheat meal. Well, what would end up happening is at about 1 or 2 o'clock on Saturday, I would start with I would call it like the cheat process. I remember one time I was going to go to Sonic and get something. And I don't normally eat at Sonic. There's nothing wrong with Sonic. I just don't eat there. On the way to Sonic, I brought a bag of Doritos and ate the Doritos on the way to Sonic. Now, I had to go to Sonic early because Artisan Kitchen closes at like 3 o'clock on Saturday, and I wanted to get one of those brownie bars that they make.
Oh, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just drove around all day long to different locations?
And you want to know what I ate before I left the house? 5 Tums. Swear to God.
My problem has always been moderation.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time when I was working out and doing some program, I literally went 4 months and ate a perfect diet for 4 months. I looked great, felt great, but was grumpy as hell.
For 4 whole months.
But what happens with me?
It had a lasting effect.
And then what happens? It's like, okay, tonight I'm going to go off and I'm going to have a pizza. Well, it's like that turns into a 30-day bender.
Yeah.
And I can't ever seem to find the moderation. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I always just start people with where they're at, like I said earlier, and take what you're already doing, what you already eat, what you like to eat, and form a plan for a week at a time and portion it out. I mean, I say and I have to do this at home, get my measuring cups out and measure out, okay, I'm supposed to have a half a cup of this, put that in my bowl or plate, whatever. And then that's what I'm eating. This is my allotment. And you just teach yourself over time. You teach yourself moderation because to me, it's black and white. A half a cup is a serving. So I'm getting a half a cup.
Yeah, it's a half a cup.
Does your body get used to it? Like, does your body get used to that if that much food is on the plate for dinner, at the end of eating what's on the plate, you're satisfied?
Absolutely. Our bodies are so smart. I mean, they catch on to this. But I will say, not everybody's going to be the same because how much you need in a day is going to be different than how much I need in a day. So that's another reason that we push for people to see dietitians, because how are you going to know how many calories you're supposed to eat in a day? Do you Google it and find something you hope is close? Or how do you hope you're going to...
generally just until I can't eat anymore is typically where
Until I'm not able to stand.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion on the keto program?
So what a lot of people don't know about keto is the ketogenic diet actually came out, or it's a treatment for epilepsy. It's a treatment for seizures.
Really?
And it can, when followed, now the way it's followed for patients that have epilepsy versus how we do it for weight loss, it's a little stricter for them. But what it does is it changes the way the brain works. And then it pretty much treats their seizures and they don't have seizures. So that's where it all started with. But then they realized, people lose weight on this too. Now, from the nutrition community in general, and all of the studies that have been done on this, just from the medical community in general, there hasn't been enough evidence done with enough people to say, okay, how's this going to impact us in 15 years? If everybody follows this, what's it going to look like? My concern with it is obviously it's really, really high in fat.
Right.
And we've already talked about saturated fat and how that is for the heart. So over the long period of time, my concern would be that you're damaging your heart. And also you're cutting out fruit and a lot of other fresh foods. So where are you going to get those vitamins and minerals?
Are there a lot of processed foods in keto?
There can be.
Yeah.
Because
A lot of preservatives because of meat. I mean, to make meat last that long, you've got to preserve it somehow.
What about like these nutrition drinks? We see these nutrition bars about these shakes and teas and all these things.
Right. I think that when they first came around, they were marketed as this great thing, this great meal replacement. But then people started reading into it and saying, oh, there's a lot of sugar in this. And now I think that can still be true. I just think that we have got to ask what's in our food or look for what's in our food. So if you're going to go to one of these nutrition bars, look online and look at their nutrition facts. Does it have 30 grams of added sugar along with all of the fruit that's in it? Are they only telling you about the fruit and not telling you about the rest of the stuff?
Right. How can we hold ourselves accountable? Like when we're dieting, either to gain weight, get on a heart healthy diet, a diet for diabetes, or losing weight.
Right. One of my favorite things is tracking. Tracking what, and there's apps for that. Some people are old fashioned, want to write it down because if you are writing it somewhere or you're typing it somewhere, it's like, oh, it really happened. You know?
Yeah, I feel like I'd have to burn what I'd have to burn like 15 Hershey Kisses. I'd have to burn it.
Right. You feel like you need to maybe get on the elliptical for a while or something to get those calories.
It. That's right.
Yeah.
So apps or writing down is a good way to track food, right?
That's what I've seen the most success with when people, because even if you are seeing a dietitian or you're seeing anyone or you're doing it with a friend, they're not over your shoulder all the time. I mean, you're only accountable to yourself, really. No one can do it for you. So tracking it and being honest with yourself.
Look, we want to thank you for coming on. This has been Karly Stom from Kentucky Care, and we'll be listing her contact information in our show notes if you want to get a hold of her, if you've got any follow-up questions. Thanks again for listening to What Should You Ask? If you like what you've heard, make sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to where you listen to podcasts. If you loved what you heard, then leave us a review where you listen and tell anybody that we're at whatshouldyouask.live. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, we ask, what should you ask about life topics? So make sure you come back to hear about what we're asking.
What Should You Ask is hosted by Todd Farmer and Sam Wright. The producer is Jennifer Caldwell. Visit whatshouldyouask.live to download additional episodes, suggest a future topic, or get a free book from the host. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as legal advice on any subject matter. You should not act or refrain from acting based on any content mentioned without seeking legal or other professional advice in your area. The hosts, guests, and sponsors remove themselves from all liability for actions you take or fail to take based on any content in this broadcast.